The big room was silent as Susan Miller walked in. She was the first human to enter the Galactic Council chamber. The walls were made of a strange blue stone that seemed to glow. Above them, stars shone through a clear dome. Susan tried not to look impressed. She had practiced this moment many times. Behind her walked Alan Wright. He wore the simple gray uniform of Earth's space fleet. His face showed nothing, but his eyes watched everything. 20 years in the military had taught him to see danger before it happened. Across the room stood Kelnar. He had 4 arms and a body covered in hard plates like a beetle. He was the voice of the Vexillian Confederacy, the strongest power in the galaxy for 10,000 years. His kind ruled over hundreds of alien species. "The human arrives late," Kelnar said. His voice came through Susan's translator as flat and cold. "This does not start our meeting well." Susan did not reply to his comment. She had been told that showing weakness was dangerous here. Instead, she placed her papers on the table and nodded to the other aliens in the room. Some looked almost human. Others were so strange she had to force herself not to stare. "Thank you for allowing Earth to speak today," she said. Her voice was steady. "We have come to ask for a seat on the council." A sound like laughter came from several aliens. Kelnar's 4 eyes blinked one after another, which Susan knew was a sign of amusement. "Your species has barely left its own star system," he said. "You have been known to us for only 3 cycles. The council is for advanced species, not children playing with spacecraft." Susan had expected this. Humans were new to space travel. They had discovered faster-than-light engines only 20 years ago. But they had learned quickly. "We have followed all rules for membership," she said. "Our technology meets the standards. Our colonies now exist on 4 planets. We have the right to ask." Kelnar made a gesture with his upper arms. "Rights are given by the Confederacy, not claimed by primitives." Alan stepped forward slightly. His hand moved closer to his side, where a small weapon was hidden. Susan gave him a quick look. "Not yet. We understand the Confederacy has rules," Susan continued. "We have studied them carefully. Section 42 states that any species with faster-than-light travel may petition for membership." "Petition, yes. Receive, no." Kelnar moved closer. He was much taller than Susan. "Your request is denied. You may return to your system and be grateful we allow you to keep it." The real reason went unspoken. The Vexillians did not share power. Their council was a show, where other species pretended to have a voice while the Confederacy made all decisions. Susan took a small device from her pocket. "Before we leave, I would like to show you something." She placed it on the table. A 3D image appeared above it. It showed huge ships near Jupiter's moons. They were using machines to take minerals from the moon called Europa. The ships were clearly Vexillian. "These images were taken 3 Earth days ago," Susan said. "As you know, we signed preliminary agreements marking Jupiter and all its moons as human territory." The room grew very quiet. Kelnar's body became still. "Your ships are stealing resources from human space," Susan continued. "According to Confederate law, Section 87A, this is an act of war against humanity." Kelnar's translator must have made a mistake. These humans could not be saying what he thought they were saying. "You are confused," he said. "Perhaps there is an explanation." "There is no confusion." Susan cut him off. "The Confederacy has attacked Earth's territory. We have the right to respond." Several of the other aliens began to move away. One made a high whistling sound that Susan's translator couldn't understand. "You cannot mean—" Kelnar started. "We accept your declaration of war," Susan said clearly. "Earth will defend itself against Vexillian aggression." The room erupted in noise. Some aliens rushed for the exits. Others began talking at once. A small green alien simply put its 3 heads in its hands. Alan moved closer to Susan, his body now between her and Kelnar. "You have made a terrible mistake," Kelnar said. His voice had changed. It was no longer amused or condescending. "The Confederacy has never lost a war. We have destroyed civilizations older than your recorded history. Susan picked up her device and turned off the image. Actually, Ambassador, I believe it's you who has made the mistake. You will regret this, Kelnar said. Your species will not survive. Susan smiled slightly. That's what makes humans different, Ambassador. We don't just survive, we win. She turned and walked toward the exit, Alan close behind her. The other aliens moved out of their way, as if afraid to be too close. Once they were in the corridor, outside Alan finally spoke. That went exactly as planned. Susan nodded. They never took us seriously. That's why they got sloppy with the mining operation. They never thought we would find it, or that we would care if we did. What happens now? Alan asked, though he already knew. Now we wait for them to attack, Susan said. And we show them what happens when you corner a species that has spent its entire history fighting itself. They entered their small ship. The crew looked at them with nervous faces. Is it done? Asked the pilot, Joe Green. It's done, Susan confirmed. Send the signal to Earth. Operation First Strike is active. As their ship left the council station, they could see larger ships already moving. News traveled fast. The Confederacy would not wait long to respond. How long do you think we have? Alan asked. Not long, Susan said. But we don't need long. The fleet is already in position. She looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, 37 human ships waited. It was all Earth had. Against them would come hundreds, maybe thousands of Vexillian warships. The odds seemed impossible, but humans had faced impossible odds before. They think we're insane, Alan said, declaring war on the most powerful force in the galaxy. Susan nodded. We probably are insane, but that's our advantage. They've been the strongest for so long, they've forgotten what it's like to be afraid. Their ship jumped to faster than light speed, heading home to prepare. Behind them, the Vexillian war machine began to move, ready to crush the upstart humans who had dared to challenge them. Neither side yet understood what was really happening. The Vexillians didn't know that humans had been preparing for this moment since they first learned about the Confederacy, and the humans didn't know just how right they were about one thing. They had indeed just declared war on the deadliest species in the galaxy. But it wasn't the Vexillians, it was themselves. News of the human declaration spread quickly across the galaxy. Most alien species thought it was a joke. Some felt sorry for the humans. All of them expected Earth to be destroyed within days. On the main Vexillian warship, Overgeneral Sorth gathered his officers. His large body towered over the holographic map showing Earth's solar system. All four of his arms were tense as he spoke. These humans have insulted our honor, he said. We will crush them quickly to show the galaxy what happens to those who challenge us. His officers nodded. None of them looked worried. The Vexillian war fleet had 300 ships. Each one was bigger and more powerful than anything humans had built. The Confederacy had won every war for 10,000 years. How shall we attack, Overgeneral? Asked his second-in-command. The usual pattern, Sorth replied. Send in the 8th Fleet. Destroy their defenses, offer them a chance to surrender. If they refuse, we take their planet. A young officer stepped forward. His name was Grek, and he worked in intelligence. Sir, I have been studying humans, he said. His voice was quiet. They are strange. They have fought wars against themselves for their entire history. The other officers laughed. The idea seemed silly to them. What kind of species wastes time fighting itself? One asked. A stupid one, another replied. Sorth did not laugh. Is there a point to this, Officer Grek? Yes, sir, Grek said. Because they fight themselves, they think differently about war. They have many strategies we have never seen before. Sorth waved a hand dismissively. Their strategies won't matter against our technology. Begin the attack. Far away on the Earth ship Defiance, Captain Lisa Owens looked at her crew. Their faces were serious but not afraid. They had trained for this moment. Status report, she ordered. Frank Rodriguez looked up from his computer. All ships are in position, Captain. Operation Trojan Horse is ready. Lisa nodded. The plan was dangerous. Many thought it would fail. Humans had only built 37 ships that could travel between stars. Against them came 300 Vexillian warships, but humans had something the Vexillians didn't understand. Creativity, born from desperation. "All ships, this is Captain Owens," she said into her radio. "The enemy will arrive in 6 hours. Remember your training. Remember your families back home. Today we show the galaxy why you should never corner a human." On Earth, people watched the sky with worry. They had been told what was coming. Many had moved underground for safety. But Jack Nelson, Earth's defense director, wasn't underground. He stood in the command center, surrounded by screens showing the positions of their ships. "Do you really think this will work?" asked his assistant, Mary. Jack looked grim. "It has to work. We only get one chance." 6 hours later, the sky above, Earth lit up with flashes of light. The Vexillian ships had arrived at the edge of the solar system. They moved in perfect formation, like they had done in 100 wars before. Admiral Grek watched from the bridge of his ship. He felt almost sorry for the humans. They were so outmatched. "Enemy ships detected, Admiral," said his tactical officer. "They are moving strangely." Grek looked at his screen. The human ships weren't forming a defensive line around their planet. Instead, they were spreading out in all directions. "What are they doing?" he wondered aloud. Suddenly, the human ships accelerated. Each one headed straight for a Vexillian vessel. "They're going to ram us," shouted the tactical officer. "Evasive, action," Grek ordered. But the humans didn't crash into the Vexillian ships. At the last moment, they swerved away. As they passed by, they released thousands of small objects. "Analysis," Grek demanded. "They appear to be some kind of mines." The officer replied, "But they're not exploding, they're attaching to our ships." The small objects stuck to the hulls of the Vexillian vessels. Then they began to drill through the metal. Inside each one was a computer virus specifically designed to attack Vexillian systems. Alarms began to sound throughout the fleet. Ship after ship reported systems failing. Engines shut down, weapons went offline, communications stopped working. "What is happening?" Grek shouted. No one answered. His own ship's lights flickered and died. In 12 minutes, 27 Vexillian warships were completely disabled. The rest were in chaos. They had never faced this kind of attack before. On the Defiance, Lisa watched the data coming in. "Phase 1 complete," she said. "Begin Phase 2. The remaining human ships now moved in, targeting the confused Vexillian vessels. They didn't try to destroy them. Instead, they used specialized weapons to disable their engines and communications. On Earth, Jack Nelson received the reports with a tight smile. "It's working," he told Mary. "Tell Dr. Jones to begin the broadcast." Across all Vexillian frequencies, a message began to play. It showed a human woman standing in a plain room. She wore simple clothes, not a uniform. "I am Dr. Patricia Jones," she said. "I speak to all species of the Vexillian Confederacy. Your leaders have made a serious mistake. They thought humans fight to win. That's not true. We fight because it's what we do best." The message continued, explaining humanity's history of warfare, how humans had constantly invented new ways to fight each other, how that same creativity was now turned against the Vexillians. "We have uploaded the plans for our virus technology to every planet in the Confederacy," Patricia said. "We call this open-source warfare. Unlike the Vexillians, we don't keep our weapons secret. We share them." In the Vexillian High Command, Overgeneral Sorth watched in horror as reports came in. Not only was the 8th Fleet crippled, but rebellions were breaking out across Confederate space. Subjugated species were using human technology to fight back. "This is impossible," Sorth said. "How can one primitive species cause so much damage?" Officer Grek, who had warned him about humans, spoke quietly. "Because, sir, they understand something. We forgot long ago. The best weapon is not technology, but ideas." Meanwhile, at the edge of known space, a small group of human ships approached a strange area where normal space seemed to bend. Their leader was Captain Bobby Ferguson. His mission was secret, known only to Earth's highest commanders. "Are we sure about this?" asked his first officer, Cynthia. Bobby nodded. "The Vexillians have one enemy they've never been able to defeat: the Drift. We need to find them." The Drift were mysterious beings who lived in the spaces between normal reality. They had fought the Vexillians to a standstill centuries ago, then disappeared. "What makes you think they'll help us?" Cynthia asked. Bobby looked at the strange distortion ahead of them. "Because we're offering something they've never had before: allies." As their ship entered the distortion, the crew felt reality shift around them. They were about to meet the only other species the Vexillians truly feared. The galaxy was changing, and humanity, the newcomers everyone had laughed at, were the ones changing it. Captain Bobby Ferguson's ship floated in the strange space where reality seemed to bend. The stars looked wrong here. They stretched and twisted like reflections in water. The crew was silent. Many felt sick from the way normal physics didn't work properly. "Anything?" Bobby asked his science officer. "Nothing yet, sir," she replied. "If the Drift are here, they aren't showing themselves." Bobby wasn't surprised. The Drift were said to be watchers. They studied other species from hiding. No one knew what they looked like. Some said they weren't even made of normal matter. "Keep broadcasting our message," he ordered. "They'll respond when they're ready." Cynthia looked nervous. "And if they're not friendly?" Bobby gave her a small smile. "Then this will be a very short mission." Meanwhile, back in Earth's solar system, the battle continued. The Vexillian 8th Fleet was in chaos. Many of their ships floated dead in space, disabled by human viruses. Others tried to fight back, but they couldn't coordinate their attacks. Admiral Grek had managed to get some systems working on his flagship. He stared at the battle reports in disbelief. How could this be happening? The Vexillians had the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The humans were primitives. "Sir," his communications officer called, "we're receiving a transmission from Overgeneral Sorth." Sorth's face appeared on the screen. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme anger. "Admiral Grek," he said, "what is the meaning of this failure? The humans should have been defeated already." Grek tried to explain. "Sir, their attack was unusual. They didn't try to destroy our ships. They used some kind of computer virus to disable them." "I don't want excuses," Sorth snapped. "I want results. The 2nd and 3rd fleets are on their way. When they arrive, you will crush these humans completely." The screen went dark. Grek felt cold. If he failed, his career was over, maybe his life too. "New contacts detected," his sensor officer reported. "More human ships entering the system." Grek felt a surge of hope. If the humans committed more forces, he might still win. But these weren't warships. They were small, fast vessels. Civilian ships. Hundreds of them coming from Earth. What are they doing? He wondered. On Earth, Defense Director Jack Nelson watched the civilian fleet launch. His assistant Mary stood beside him, her face pale. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. "Those are normal people up there, not soldiers." Jack nodded grimly. "Every human is a soldier now. That's what the Vexillians don't understand." The civilian ships spread out through the solar system. Each carried volunteers and simple equipment. They headed for the disabled Vexillian warships. On the Defiance, Captain Lisa Owens received the reports. "Phase 3 beginning," she told her crew. "The boarding teams are on their way." Frank looked up from his console. "Do they really think civilians can capture Vexillian warships?" Lisa smiled. "Those civilians include engineers, computer experts, and people who play war games for fun. I wouldn't bet against them." The civilian ships reached the disabled Vexillian vessels. People in simple spacesuits cut their way inside. The Vexillians fought back, but they were confused and disorganized. The humans worked in teams, using clever tactics. Within hours, humans had captured 5 Vexillian warships completely. They began studying the alien technology, looking for weaknesses, learning how it worked. Across Confederate space, similar scenes played out. Subjugated species, using human virus technology, rose up against their Vexillian rulers. Planets that had been under Confederate control for thousands of years declared independence. In the great Vexillian capital, the ruling council met in emergency session. The room was filled with angry voices. "How can this be happening?" demanded one council member. "They are just one species, and a primitive one at that." Another pounded the table with all four arms. "The humans must be stopped before this spreads further." Overgeneral Sorth stood to address them. "I have ordered all available fleets to Earth. We will crush this rebellion and make an example of humanity." A quiet voice spoke from the corner of the room. It was Kelnar, the ambassador who had first met Susan Miller. "I have studied human history since our meeting," he said. "They are unlike any species we have encountered. They don't think like us." "Explain," ordered the council leader. "Most species evolve toward cooperation within their kind," Kelnar said. "Humans never did. They fought themselves constantly. They built weapons specifically to kill other humans. They thought about war in ways we never had to." The council was silent, thinking about this. "And now," Kelnar continued, "they have turned all that creativity toward us. And they are sharing their knowledge with every species in the Confederacy." Far away, at the edge of known space, Bobby Ferguson and his crew waited. They had been broadcasting their message for 3 days. Some were losing hope. "Maybe the stories about the drift aren't true," Cynthia said. "Maybe they don't exist." Just then, the space around them rippled. A shape appeared that hurt the eyes to look at. It seemed to exist in more dimensions than humans could see. "Captain," the communications officer called. "We're receiving a response. But it's not in any language I recognize." "Put it through the translator," Bobby ordered. Strange sounds filled the bridge. The translator worked for several minutes before words began to form. "You seek alliance," the voice said. It sounded like many voices speaking together. "Yes," Bobby replied. "We fight the Vexillian Confederacy. We know you have fought them, too." There was a long pause. The strange shape rippled again. "Why should we help?" Bobby had prepared for this question. "Because humans offer something new. We don't want to rule the galaxy. We want every species to be free to rule themselves." Another pause, longer this time. "Show us proof." Bobby nodded to his communications officer. She sent the files they had brought, videos of Earth, human history, the battle plans against the Vexillians, Dr. Jones's broadcast about open-source warfare. The strange shape changed colors as it received the information. It seemed to be considering. "Interesting," the many voices said. "You fight differently." "Yes," Bobby agreed. "And we want to share what we know with you, as we've shared with others." The shape pulsed with light. "We will consider." Back in Earth's solar system, Admiral Grek watched in horror as more of his ships were captured. Humans and their allies were learning Vexillian technology too quickly. And now reports came in that the second and third fleets were facing rebellions on their way to Earth. "This can't be happening," he whispered. But it was. The species that everyone had laughed at, that no one had taken seriously, was changing the rules of warfare. And the Vexillian Confederacy, for the first time in 10,000 years, was losing. 1 month had passed since the first battle. What everyone had expected to be a quick war was now spreading across the galaxy. On a captured Vexillian ship, now named Liberty, Susan Miller met with the military leaders of Earth's forces. "The situation has changed faster than we expected," she told them. The room was filled with officers from different countries. They all looked tired, but determined. "The Vexillians have pulled back to defend their core worlds." Alan Wright, now promoted to general, studied the star map floating above the table. "They're scared," he said. "For the first time in their history, they don't know what to do." "They should be scared," said Captain Lisa Owens. Her ship, the Defiance, had led many successful attacks. "We've captured 32 of their warships. Our engineers have started to understand their technology, and every day more species join our side. Susan nodded. But the Confederacy is still powerful. They have thousands of ships we haven't faced yet, and now they know our virus tricks won't work twice. The mood in the room grew more serious. The early victories had been because of surprise. The Vexillians hadn't expected humans to fight the way they did, but now they were adapting. "We need a new plan," Susan said, "and I think I know what it is." Far away, in the twisted space at the edge of the galaxy, Bobby Ferguson stood in a room that hurt his eyes to look at. The walls seemed to bend in ways that shouldn't be possible. Around him floated 7 shapes that might be the drift. It was hard to tell where one ended and another began. "We have watched your battles," the many voices said. "Your species fights, creatively." "Thank you," Bobby replied, though he wasn't sure it was a compliment. "Will you help us?" The shapes moved in complex patterns. "Why should drift join human? War? Vexillians leave us alone now." "Because they won't leave you alone forever," Bobby said. "The Confederacy wants to control everything, and because we're offering something no one else has before." "What offer?" the voices asked. "A true alliance," Bobby said. "Not just for this war, but after. Every species working together as equals, sharing knowledge, trade, protection." The shapes pulsed with different colors. They seemed to be talking to each other in a way humans couldn't understand. "Drift has fought alone always," the voices finally said. "Alliance is new concept." Bobby smiled. "That's what humans are good at. New concepts." Meanwhile, on the Vexillian homeworld, Over-General Sorth faced the angry council. He had promised quick victory. Instead, the Confederacy was facing its first real challenge in thousands of years. "The humans must be stopped," the council leader said. "They spread dangerous ideas. Already 17 systems have declared independence." "I have ordered our remaining fleets to pull back and defend our core worlds," Sorth reported. "We will build up our forces, then crush this rebellion completely." From the side of the room, Officer Grech spoke up. "Sir, I don't think that will work." All eyes turned to him. Grech had been promoted after his warnings about humans proved correct. "Explain," ordered the council leader. "The humans don't think like us," Grech said. "They won't attack our core worlds directly. That's what we would do, so they'll do something else." "What else could they do?" Sorth demanded. Before Grech could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the building. Screens lit up with emergency messages. "What's happening?" the council leader asked. A communications officer rushed in. "Sir, we're receiving broadcasts on all channels. Someone has hacked our central network." On every screen across the Vexillian homeworld, a human face appeared. It was Dr. Patricia Jones, the same woman who had broadcast the message about open-source warfare. "People of the Vexillian Confederacy," she said. "Your leaders have lied to you. They said humans were primitive. They said we would be easily defeated. They were wrong." The council watched in horror as Patricia showed images of captured Vexillian ships, of other species rising up against Confederate rule, of human and alien crews working together. "But we don't want to destroy you," Patricia continued. "Unlike your leaders, we don't believe one species should rule over others. We believe in freedom, in cooperation, in peace through strength, not through fear." Then the broadcast showed something that made the council gasp. Human engineers were helping freed planets build their own ships, teaching them to make their own faster-than-light engines, sharing the technology that the Confederacy had kept secret for thousands of years. "You have a choice," Patricia said. "Join us as equals in building a new galactic alliance, or continue following leaders who have lied to you and will sacrifice you to keep their power." The broadcast ended. The council room was silent. "How did they hack our central network?" Sorth finally asked. "It's supposed to be impossible." Grech looked grim. "Nothing is impossible for humans, that's what we keep failing to understand." On Earth, Jack Nelson and Mary watched the broadcast from the control center. Around them, technicians monitored the reaction across Confederate space. "It's working," Mary said excitedly. We're getting responses from inside Vexillian territory. Regular citizens asking how they can help. Jack nodded. Phase 4 complete. Now we wait for their response. In space near Jupiter, the Liberty received a message from Bobby Ferguson's ship. Susan Miller read it and smiled. The Drift have agreed to meet with us, she told Alan. They're interested in our idea of an alliance. Alan looked surprised. No one has ever managed to ally with the Drift before. No one ever offered them what we're offering, Susan replied. A galaxy where no species rules over others, where everyone works together as equals. Do you really think that can work? Alan asked. Different species have different needs, different goals. Susan's face grew serious. It has to work. The old way, conquest and control, leads to what the Vexillians created, a galaxy of fear and oppression. We have to prove there's a better way. The Liberty changed course, heading toward the meeting place Bobby had arranged. It would be the first official contact between humans, the Drift, and representatives from a dozen other species that had joined their cause. On the Vexillian homeworld, protests had broken out in several cities. People were demanding answers from their leaders. The council met in emergency session. This is your fault, the council leader told Sorth. You said the humans would be easily defeated. Sorth's body tensed with anger. No one could have predicted. Their methods, they don't fight like a normal species. Then we must adapt, Kelnar said. The humans have shown that sharing knowledge makes them stronger, not weaker. Perhaps there are lessons we can learn. Treason, shouted another council member. You suggest we adopt human ideas? Kelnar stood firm. I suggest we survive. The galaxy is changing. If we don't change with it, we will fall. The debate raged on. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Vexillian Confederacy faced not just a military challenge, but an ideological one, and they had no idea how to fight. 3 months after the war began, representatives from 27 species gathered on a neutral space station. The station floated at the edge of what was once Confederate space. Its large meeting room had been specially designed to accommodate beings of all shapes and sizes. In the center of the room stood Susan Miller. She looked tired but proud. Next to her was Alan Wright, now wearing the uniform of the new Earth Defense Force. Around them sat or floated delegates from across the galaxy. Even the Drift were there, represented by 3 shimmering shapes that hurt the eyes to look at directly. Captain Bobby Ferguson stood near them as a liaison. At the far end of the room, separated from the others, sat the Vexillian delegation. Ambassador Kelnar led them. His once proud posture was now stiff with tension. Officer Grek sat beside him, along with 2 other Vexillians. Notably absent was Overgeneral Sorth. 3 days earlier, he had been removed from power by his own people, after protests spread across Vexillian worlds. We are here to discuss terms, Susan began. Her voice was clear and carried throughout the room. The conflict between Earth and the Vexillian Confederacy has grown into something much larger. It has become a fight for freedom for all species. Kelnar's 4 eyes blinked slowly. The Confederacy has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. We brought order and stability. You brought control, Susan corrected. There's a difference. A delegate from a small green species spoke up. My people have lived under Vexillian rule for 40 generations. We were never allowed to develop our own space technology. Now, thanks to the humans, we have built our first ships. Other delegates shared similar stories. Species that had been kept dependent on the Confederacy were now standing on their own. The Vexillian delegates listened in silence. Finally, Kelnar spoke again. What are your terms? Susan looked at each delegate before answering. The Confederacy must end. In its place, we propose a galactic alliance. All species will be equal members. No one will rule over others. Kelnar's body tensed. You ask us to give up our empire. We ask you to join a better one, Susan replied. The Vexillians can be part of this new alliance. Your knowledge and experience would be valuable, but as equals, not rulers. Grek leaned over and whispered something to Kelnar. The ambassador seemed to consider it carefully. "And if we refuse?" he asked. It was Bobby who answered. "Then you will stand alone. The Drift have joined our alliance. So have most of your former subjects. Your fleets are scattered. Your people are questioning your leadership." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The Confederacy could fight on, but it would be a losing battle. Kelnar turned to his fellow delegates and spoke in their own language. They talked quickly, their voices rising and falling. Finally, Kelnar turned back to face Susan. "We need time to consult with our council," he said. Susan nodded. "You have 3 days." As the meeting ended, the delegates broke into smaller groups. The Drift representatives floated toward Susan and Bobby. "Humans create change," the many voices said. "Galaxy different now. Is that good or bad?" Susan asked. The shapes rippled with colors. "Different is interesting. Drift watch a long time. Same pattern, always. Now, new pattern." Bobby smiled. "That's what humans do best. Change patterns." In another part of the room, Alan talked with Lisa Owens and Frank Rodriguez. Their ships had led many of the battles against Confederate forces. "Do you think the Vexillians will agree?" Frank asked. Lisa looked over at the departing Vexillian delegates. "They don't have much choice. Their empire is falling apart around them." "They still have powerful ships," Alan pointed out. "They could cause a lot of damage in a final attack." "But to what end?" Lisa asked. "Even if they destroyed Earth, the ideas we've spread can't be stopped now. The galaxy has changed." Back on Earth, Jack Nelson and Mary watched the meeting through a video link. Around them, the command center was quieter now. The immediate danger to Earth had passed. 3 months, Mary said, shaking her head in wonder. 3 months ago, most humans didn't even know aliens existed. Now we're helping to reshape the galaxy. Jack nodded. "That's the human way. We adapt faster than anyone expects." 3 days later, everyone gathered again in the meeting room. Susan stood at the center waiting for the Vexillian response. Alan noticed she wore the same clothes as before, suggesting she had been working without rest. The Vexillian delegation entered. There were more of them this time, including several high-ranking council members who had arrived from their home world. Kelnar led them to the table. "We have consulted with our people," he announced. The decision was difficult. The room held its breath. This was the moment that would determine if peace was possible or if the war would continue. "The Vexillian Confederacy has existed for 10,000 years, Kelnar said. "We believed our way was best for all species. We believed order must be imposed." He paused, looking at each of the delegates in turn. "We were wrong." A murmur ran through the room. No one had ever heard a Vexillian admit error before. "Humanity has shown us something we had forgotten," Kelnar continued. "That strength comes from cooperation, not control. That sharing knowledge makes everyone stronger." He turned to face Susan directly. "We accept your terms. The Confederacy will end. We will join your galactic alliance as equals, not rulers." The room erupted in sounds of celebration from dozens of different species. Susan stepped forward and extended her hand to Kelnar in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment, he reached out with his upper right arm and took it. "This is just the beginning," Susan told him. "Building this alliance will be harder than fighting the war." "Then it is fortunate that humans are good at difficult things," Kelnar replied. Later, as delegates worked on the details of the peace agreement, Susan found a quiet corner to rest. Alan joined her. "You look exhausted," he said. Susan nodded. "I am. But it was worth it." "Did you ever think it would turn out this way?" Alan asked. "When you declared war on the Confederacy, did you expect to end up creating a new galactic order?" Susan smiled slightly. "That was always the plan. We knew we couldn't win a conventional war against the Vexillians, but we could change the rules. By turning their subjects against them? By showing everyone a better way," Susan corrected. Humans have spent their history fighting each other. We learned the hard way that war isn't the answer. Alan looked out at the delegates working together, species that had been enemies now talking as equals. So when Kelnar said we had declared war on the deadliest species in the galaxy, he began. He was right, Susan finished, but not in the way he thought. Humans are the deadliest species not because we're good at fighting, but because we're good at changing, at adapting, at finding new solutions. She stood up, ready to return to the negotiations. The Vexillians ruled through fear for 10,000 years. We've replaced that with something stronger. What's that? Alan asked. Susan looked back at him. Hope.